Meet David Amos, the managing director of Plus0 Limited, who has built multiple high-performance teams, led innovative change projects. With his involvement in the green hydrogen and clean power solutions, Amos combines deep technical insight with strategic vision, making him a highly sought-after leader in Plus0 Limited.
So let's talk about raising capital, branding, and sales. So from founders that I have been talking to, most of them have been coming to one conclusion, that it is very, very easy to get customers, get funding when they've built a moat, sort of a personal brand, and it is mostly founder-led. Founder-led means, just the same way you are here now, the founder is posting on TikTok, on social media pages, then people now have sort of a pseudo relationship with that founder. But the reason why I use the word pseudo is because they've read what he's posting, they feel like they know this person.
So I guess we haven't been very good, I think, on the social media side. I didn't grow up with social media, so I don't naturally take to it. But we did at an early stage make quite an effort to create a visual brand for Plus0, and I don't take any credit for that myself. Once we had got going, I got a call out the blue on my mobile phone from somebody that I'd never met before, saying, I really like what you guys are doing. I think I could help you. Could we meet and have a chat? So being curious, I met with Mark, and he was I guess a designer. He'd been a journalist and run the sort of design sort of studio stuff, and he said, I think what you're doing is great. I just think your brand could be so much better. And so I brought Mark on board, Brandon our story. So he came on board as our director of story, and he reworked the Plus0 visual branding and the colouring, and I think created a very attractive look to Plus0, and I'm very grateful for his input for that. So and it projected, I think, a sort of professional look to what we were doing. We haven't, as I say, made enough of what we're doing out there. One of my colleagues has for some time been saying, we could be doing so much more, telling so much more of our stories out in social media. So it is part of what we will try and do more of, because we are doing some really, some really interesting stuff. We were in two groups of engineering students to the Monaco Energy Boat Challenge in Monaco this year, and that was an area where there was quite a lot of stuff out there in social media because the students are really good at it. And it sort of highlighted to me, we need to get better at this stuff, because we're doing some really interesting stuff that people will like. But what we do at the moment is very much business to business. So and I personally think that it's important that you build that relationship on a one-to-one basis, so you actually meet with the people, because ultimately they need to trust you. They need to think that you can have a brand, and if that brand is associated with doing a good job, doing it professionally, doing it safely, that's great. But at the stage we're at, we've had to directly persuade people that that's what we do, and being able to build that relationship with your customers, and you also need that personal relationship to get to know your customers. Your customer can get to know you from their brand, and you might be able to get to know a bit about what they're at from their brand, but in order for us to work out how can we really support this customer, we need to be talking to them. So I don't think there's any branding, yes, I think is important. I think it doesn't replace, well, in our business anyway, it certainly doesn't replace with that relationship with your your personal person-to-person relationship with your customer. So
that's pretty neat. That's and still going back to that a little bit more. One thing I have seen is that okay, I think I've already said that the fact that somebody can have a relationship with be tracking your movement, tracking the growth of the business, like all of the amazing things you are working on. I just love the way the internet now does open up those kind of avenues and opportunities. And I want to know, are there plans in the future for you to exploit these other avenues?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, Coyote. As I was saying, we recognise that we could be doing so much more, and in terms of the mission I have for Plus Zero, which is to kind of make a difference on climate change side, getting that message out there, that the type of technology that we provide and others, there are solutions there to the problems of replacing fossil fuels. So we need to get better at that. And one of the things that we intend to do, and if and when we have the resources to do it, and it was a role that's in our business plan, was to bring somebody on board and into the business that can kind of bring those skills, because we don't have those skills within the team. We're all unfortunately a kind of old white sort of balding men at the moment that the technology doesn't come naturally to us, so we do need to get a lot better at that, and bring some more people with those skills and into the business. But I think the sort of Plus Zero black and the Plus Zero logo and the symbol that we use on everything, we'll have it on our buildings. So we have a visual aesthetic that
awesome.
that I feel is very important. So we've got the sort of some of the basics there
covered, which is nice.
And to say, Mark, my former director of Story, he kind of very much got that in place for us. So that's there, and I think with the right skills and focus on it, yeah, absolutely, we could do so much more on the sort of social media channels.
Awesome. So if your would-be customer if they are listening to you, let's say construction company, what will you tell them now? Why should they switch to hydrogen?
So if they're committed in their business to decarbonising, then there's a range of ways in which hydrogen technology can support that journey. Recognition that at the moment that's not going to save them money, but that it has the potential to save them money in
the future,
in the next few years, when hydrogen price comes down, and also it's actually going to allow them to get business in areas currently that they might struggle. So for instance, in city centre areas, and more cities are introducing clean air zones, quite rightly, because of the pollution from diesel cars and buses and equipment. So you're not able to use diesel generators now in some city centre areas. So if you're going to be building something, a construction company or a developer, then you're going to have to find alternatives to diesel generators. So, and that might make the difference between whether you get the contract from the client or not. If the client can see that you're taking seriously trying to find solutions to that, and quite a bit of this is client driven as well. So ultimately, the end users of these, the customers of these construction companies, they are saying, we want to see the carbon associated with this development reduced as much as possible. So we are able to sort of help those companies provide evidence to their clients that yes, it comes to running the construction site, then we are looking to adopt the technologies that will allow us to reduce the carbon associated with generators or construction equipment and the like. So.
Awesome. That's incredible. If somebody is listening to us now, I want you to make a case for hydrogen, please.
Well, hydrogen is really interesting because it has multiple uses. So going back to where we started, it was the work I did in the Western Isles of Scotland that got me interested in hydrogen. And in the Western Isles, despite the fact that there are wind turbines on the island, the local communities pay the highest electricity costs in the UK, or amongst the highest. Remote rural communities, island communities, pay the highest electricity bills. So you can look out your window and see a wind turbine and think, well, how come we're producing the energy on our island, and yet I'm having to pay more than most for my electricity. So one of the things that hydrogen does is it allows the production of energy that can, in an area that can then be used in an area. So the Western Isles is interesting as well because over half of Scotland's community-owned land is in the Western Isles. So the land is owned by communities, and some of them, before the local grid became saturated, some of those local communities put up wind turbines, raised the money, put them up, and they've been generating a very good income for the community from those turbines. Now the grid is saturated, and there's no opportunity for them to put turbines up to bring that revenue into their community. But what hydrogen does is we can offer them an offtake for their wind energy, which allows them to generate that revenue that they then invest in the local community. So there's a trust called Point and Sandwick Trust. They've got 9 megawatt of wind turbines, and they built them themselves, and all of the revenue they've generated has been put into the local community. They support the local hospice, they fund scholarships for young people from the islands. They, together with one of the tree trusts, charities, they fund people replanting trees in the island. So a whole lot of great things that they do with that money, because they are generating the income from the turbines. So hydrogen in the islands allows more of that to happen, because we can create the demand for their electricity, and they can sell that to a community-based company. That means that they will keep more of the revenue than putting it into the grid. We can then produce hydrogen, which can replace the diesel or petrol on the island. So small rural communities can't make their own petrol or oil refinery plant, but they can produce hydrogen. It's not a complicated process. So it creates that ability to become energy self-sufficient, and islands, remote areas, have the potential to go from places where they have the most expensive energy to places where they actually own the production of energy and can provide it to the local communities for at an affordable price. So that energy independence, I think, is one of the big benefits of hydrogen. We're moving to a model from very centralised energy production, big power stations, and energy goes out to the periphery, to one where the energy is produced in the periphery in smaller places and then used in that area. And that also creates the opportunity in places like the Western Isles, where the communities own the land, for them to take more direct ownership of that energy production as well. So hydrogen is exciting from that perspective, because it creates a real opportunity for people to take ownership of energy and potentially make their communities much more resilient and robust going forward. But on a larger scale, it will create significant jobs and investment in these areas. Orkney and Shetland benefited very significantly from the North Sea oil and gas. The Western Isles didn't because of its location, but it lost a lot of people who moved from the islands to go and work in the oil and gas industry. And oil and gas is now in decline in the North Sea, so hydrogen production creates that opportunity for new clean jobs, located in these remote rural areas, and provide, because the island populations and remote rural populations are generally falling, which makes it harder to maintain public services and schools and all the things that you need in a community. So the production of hydrogen at scale also has that potential to provide a really clean new industry that will create the jobs and that will help revitalise and maintain these rural areas. So that whole social community benefit, I think, is huge. In Scotland, because of the sheer amount of wind that we've got, and potentially wave and tidal power, could be a powerhouse in hydrogen production. And the Scottish Government understand that as well and are focused on trying to make that happen. The other case for hydrogen is it's very versatile. I mean, we've been talking about using hydrogen as a direct replacement for diesel and petrol, so using the hydrogen itself as a fuel. But hydrogen is also a precursor to making a whole range of things. So, we already use millions and millions of tons of hydrogen around the world for all sorts of industries and processes. It's just all produced from natural gas at the moment. But you could produce that from clean hydrogen, but you can also you can make synthetic fuels, what are called e-fuels. Hydrogen is one of the precursors to that. So you could start producing clean, fossil-free fuels with hydrogen and other inputs. So it's a feedstock to a whole other range of chemical industrial processes. So it's a very versatile product. And as I said before, also you don't just produce hydrogen from electrolysis, you produce heat and oxygen. So they both have uses in various industries and processes. So I think viewing hydrogen through that that wider lens, I think is quite important, and try and move away from this black and white sort of view that electricity good, hydrogen bad, or hydrogen good. That there is a bit of polarization in there. Hydrogen doesn't make sense for some things, but in many areas it does, and so